This happened to me in San Diego 2 summers ago, and I'm not proud of how long I let it go on. I'm 63, a retired HR director and hospice volunteer, and I thought I knew how to read people until the day I stood in my own kitchen and realized my son and his wife were turning me into their paycheck. The magnet on my refrigerator was a purple plastic seahorse from the Birch Aquarium gift shop, and it was holding a single sheet of printer paper. "Caregiver for room and food," the top line announced, blocky and smug like someone shouting on a street corner. Under it were bullet points about duties, light cleaning, medication reminder, companion care, and then, in the pale blue scrawl I recognized as my daughter-in-law's, a note about moving in ASAP. I was reading it when I saw the last line of the typed part. Owner agrees to provide housing and meals in exchange for care until further notice. Below that, 2 signatures were already there, my son Eli and his wife Tasha, signed as household managers. My name was typed on the signature line as care recipient, as if I were already a patient. I knew, in the way you know when your car is about to stall on the 163 near Balboa Park, that everything had been set up to make me the problem, and them the solution. They were going to plant someone in my home, claim they were my caregivers, and then make it impossible for me to ask them to leave. They'd been testing the wires for months. This was the moment the trap snapped shut. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel, tell us where you're from, and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. I had moved to the Little Craftsman in North Park when my husband died. We ate our first carne asada burritos as a married couple on a bench in Balboa Park. We drove out to see the tide pools at Cabrillo every January, and we used to celebrate my birthday at the Prado until his chemo made the smell of cilantro turn him green. When the house finally felt quiet instead of empty, Eli called. He and Tasha were in between places, he said, and worried sick about my left knee after the arthroscopy at Sharp Grossmont. Would I like help? Just for a few weeks? They moved in on a Monday, like fog, there by dinner time, in all my drawers by Thursday. Tasha arranged my pill caddy and began announcing my reminders in a voice reserved for toddlers and drunk tourists. Eli fixed my rotor and changed my passwords to something he wrote down on a Post-it in his pocket. The first time I objected, Tasha said, "We're just trying to make sure you're safe, Mom." Mom, in my own house. I remember wanting to ask where I had gone while she was busy replacing me. If I seemed tired, it was because they'd made it so. They'd turn up the TV at midnight, they'd leave the laundry half done so I would finish it in the morning because I couldn't stand the smell of wet towels. When I asked them to be quieter, they were for a day. The next week, there was a new plan. Eli had found out about a county program in home supportive services that could pay us to help you, he said. We'll do the paperwork. He kissed my forehead. You shouldn't have to worry about anything. Forms appeared the way ants find the sugar bowl. Eli would slide a page in front of me while I watched Jeopardy and cover half the text with his hand. Sign here. It's just to verify you live at this address. Tasha brought me tea with too much honey. She was always holding a pen. I signed things, some, not all. The ones I refused to sign turned up later on my desk with a sticky note. Forgot to sign. It's okay. We did it for you to keep it moving. She had my signature down to a tilt at the J in Judith. My church friend Margaret noticed first. We were at Cafe Calabria, and she said, You look thin. Are you eating? I made a joke about the gourmet diet of resentment. She didn't laugh. Do you have your own keys, your own checkbook? I changed the subject. The day I found the contract on the fridge, I had gone to the pantry for flour. I wanted to bake bread because the house smelled like cheap cologne and fries. The paper was crisp, as if it had been placed there minutes earlier. Caregiver for room and food. I read the bullets, then the bottom. Owner agrees to provide housing and meals in exchange for care until further notice. The signatures like a rubber stamp. Eli, neat and careful. Tasha, a dramatic flourish. I heard them before I saw them. Eli's voice echoing from the hallway. "You seen the thing on the fridge, Mom? We think we found someone by the end of the week." Tasha appeared behind him, ponytail high, a smile like she'd tried it on in a mirror. "Her name's Chloe. She's a friend from my spa. No bad habits. Very sweet. You'll love her." "Your spa," I said, and tasted the dryer lint in my mouth. Tasha's job at a medical spa in Mission Valley was new and came with a white jacket and an authority she'd always wanted. "We thought we'd get her settled before your reevaluation," she said, as if I had asked. "The county needs to see that you have care in place," Eli added, and that was when the dizziness hit. They were not helping me, they were building a case. The clues I had ignored lined up in judgment: the mail-forwarded notice I never ordered, the empty bottle of my good scotch, then the replacement bottle of a brand I wouldn't buy, the Amazon charge for a baby gate, we have no baby, and the remark that it was for safety around the stairs. The worst part was this: Eli was the boy who used to fall asleep in the back seat on the drive home from La Jolla Shores, clutching a plastic dinosaur. He used to sing to the radio. He had my husband's eyes. Now he was a blade Tasha was holding by the handle. "I'm not fragile. I've negotiated contracts for 20 years. I know that power accrues not to those who speak the loudest, but to those who set the terms. I made tea. I let the kettle hum a little longer than it needed to. I said, 'Show me what you have.'" In my office, Tasha put the contract on my desk and smoothed the edges. It was copied from somewhere, an online template probably, and it did exactly what they wanted, created the appearance of care in exchange for lodging. It had words like mutually beneficial and in-kind compensation. Nowhere did it say tenant. Nowhere did it say at will. It said until further notice, which is a little phrase that sounds harmless and in fact means until you die fighting us. "What does Chloe think?" I asked. "She's ready to move in Friday," Tasha said. "We'll convert the front room. Eli can build her a wardrobe. We're all so excited to help you." "Is she a CNA?" I asked. "Background check?" "She's a natural caregiver," Tasha said. "Very nurturing energy." The line I added would be so simple that when I tell this story now, people almost groan at the trick and then grin because it works. This agreement is a revocable license, not a lease or tenancy. Licensor may terminate and require immediate vacatur for any reason on written notice. 14 words, and the door you came in no longer leads to a bedroom. It leads to the sidewalk. But it isn't enough to add the words. You must make everyone act as if they are true. While Eli went to the garage to look for paint for Chloe's new room, I told Tasha I wanted to show the agreement to my attorney. I do not, in fact, have a personal attorney, but the Legal Aid Society has always been kind to me when I volunteer. Tasha's mouth tightened and relaxed. "Of course," she said, "but Chloe already gave notice where she's staying." I took the contract to the UPS store on University Avenue and asked for a notary. A young man with a tie too big for his neck stamped dates on 2 copies. While he was getting the journal, I stepped to the side and wrote the line, neat and centered. "This agreement is a revocable license, not a lease or tenancy. Licensor may terminate and require immediate vacatur for any reason on written notice." And underneath it, I drew 3 signature lines. I signed the first, Judith L. Hart. I left the other 2 blank and folded the paper back into the stack, the way you might tuck a needle into a pincushion. Back home, I was careful. "If we're doing this," I said, "we do it right. I want it notarized, for Chloe's protection." That was the part that made Tasha beam, because she believes protection is something she bestows. It never occurred to her it could be something I already owned. Chloe arrived Friday with 2 duffel bags and an ultrasound printout she kept tucked in her phone case like a saint card. She was 26, pretty in a soft, damp way that made you want to hand her a towel and a sandwich. "I've always loved grandmas," she said, and her eyes were kind. I wish that had been the truth of her. She took selfies in my hallway mirror, and within an hour posted a video from my living room couch with a caption, "New job, new room, new family." We signed in the kitchen. The notary from UPS came by because I tipped him 20 in advance. He stamped each page. When he got to the one with my sentence, he frowned a little, read it, and shrugged, then slid the journal toward Eli. "Right here," he said. Eli signed without reading. Tasha signed with the flourish and a little heart on the tail of her A. Chloe drew a looping C so big it crossed into the margin. The notary left. I handed Chloe a crisp printed copy. "Welcome," I said, and meant none of it. From that moment forward, I became my old self, the HR director, the woman who writes policies that look like kindness and function like armor. If you want the revenge to land, you must build it with the patience you wish someone had showed you. I set up a logbook on the kitchen counter, care tasks, time in, time out, and told them it was for reimbursement. Tasha loved writing down what she said she was doing. 11:30, companion care, chatted about news. Chloe drew hearts in the margins. Eli wrote, "Fixed sink," which he did not. I bought a simple nanny cam that looked like a smoke detector and paid cash for it at Best Buy. I called my bank and set up alerts on every debit over $50. I pulled my credit report. I changed the password to my email and put it somewhere no one would think to look, printed and tucked in a Ziploc in the middle of a bag of frozen peas. The first real war day was the conservatorship packet I found under Eli's car seat when I borrowed the Subaru to go to Vaughn's. The hearing was scheduled for a Wednesday at 8:45 a.m. in Department 903 at the Central Courthouse on Union Street. Eli had checked the box that said I was unable to manage financial affairs and prone to confusion. He had attached a note from a clinician, which turned out to be a nurse practitioner at Tasha's spa, who wrote, "Patient appears impaired after meeting me in the kitchen once when I'd been recovering from anesthesia." My hands shook so badly I sat in the parking lot with the engine idling, staring at the paper while a man pushed carts in a parade past my window. People think the villain's power is in their willingness to do wrong. That's part of it. The rest is paperwork. They file before you wake up to the fact that a fight is happening. They tell a story about you in ink, and you don't even know you've been written. I emailed Margaret. "I need a recommendation for an elder law attorney." She replied in 5 minutes. "Call Dina Kaminsky, downtown. She's fierce." Dana met me at James Coffee Co. in Little Italy at 7 a.m. the next morning. She wore flats and a silver chain, and she listened like a surgeon. I slid the contract across the table. "I added this," I said, and pointed to the line. She read it twice, then smiled, sharp and kind. "Good," she said. "That's very good." She gave me a list. "Do these things today," she said. "Pull your medical records from Sharp Grossmont to disprove impairment. Get letters from 2 neighbors about your independence. Print the bank alerts and the logbook. Do not confront them. Not yet." Chloe, in the meantime, became herself. She was not cruel, exactly. She was careless. She used my good towels for self-tanner. She ate the leftover salmon and said she thought it was her portion. She called me Mama when she wanted something and Ma'am when she didn't. She took naps. She posted my teacups on Instagram with the caption, "My vintage aesthetic." She was pregnant, or said she was, which complicated everything and also explained the baby gate. One afternoon I came home to find her friends in my living room with iced coffees from Better Buzz. They were wearing their shoes on my rug. "We're celebrating my new job," Chloe said. "We're a family." When I asked them to leave at 5, dinner is at 6 in my house, they left empty cups on the coffee table. Tasha said I was being rigid and ungracious. Eli put his hand on my shoulder and squeezed as if controlling a dog on a leash. "If you were watching from the outside, you might wonder why I waited. Why not throw them out the moment the ink dried? Because a clean win is better than a loud one. Because if you want to be believed, you go to court with receipts. because sometimes the most merciful thing you can do for your own rage is to feed it with patience until it's strong enough to carry you. The week before the hearing, I started laying out the dominoes. I got a letter from my primary care doctor stating I had no cognitive impairment and that my knee, while grumpy, did not affect my ability to manage a household. I collected my Ring doorbell footage of Eli coming home at 2:13 a.m. twice, stumbling. I highlighted the logbook entries where Tasha claimed 8 hours of companion care on a day I had been at the DMV renewing my driver's license alone. I printed the chirpy text from Chloe to her friend. Girl, I got a free room in North Park, and we just got to make sure Judy doesn't wander off Lowell. That she stupidly sent to a number she didn't know was mine because I had my old phone number still attached to an iMessage account. I put everything in a navy binder and labeled it Blue Jay because that's the bird that yells when a predator is near. The night before court, I cooked. I made a pot of chicken soup in my big Dutch oven, and I hummed to myself while I skimmed the fat. I set the table for one. "We're going out," Tasha said, appearing in the doorway in a dress that wanted to be a shirt. "Celebrating before the big day." "What big day?" I asked, stirring. "You know," she said, "when the judge gives us the papers so we can really take care of you." I nodded as if I were mild. When they left, I put the printed notice I had drafted on the front door in a sleeve protector, blue tape on the corners. "License terminated. Occupants to vacate within 24 hours. No tenancy created." Under that, my name and the date and time in bold. I slipped copies under their door and taped one on Chloe's wardrobe. Then, because I am not unkind, I stacked 3 clean cardboard boxes by the hall, wrote their names on them in a marker, and left a roll of packing tape on top. They came home at 1:40 a.m. The ring cam caught Tasha squinting at the notice and laughing. "Cute," she said. Eli crumpled the paper and pitched it into the yard. Chloe read hers twice and chewed her lip. In the morning, the boxes were filled with a grab bag of things: lashes, a half-eaten bag of Cheetos, an apron, a framed photo of Chloe at the zoo bending toward a flamingo, and stacked outside my bedroom door like offerings. "This is illegal," Tasha said when I came out. "You can't evict a tenant without due process." "Good thing you're not a tenant," I said, and poured coffee. At 8:10 a.m., Dina met me at the courthouse and put her hand on my elbow when the elevator dinged. "Steady," she said. Department 903 smelled like wood and coffee and fear. Eli and Tasha were already there, smiling at a woman in a black suit I assumed was their attorney. Chloe sat behind them and patted her belly, though that day she drank an energy drink in the hallway. When our matter was called, Eli stood and scoped the room as if it belonged to him. Dana spoke softly, and that made the judge lean in to hear. "Your Honor, there has been a misrepresentation presented to this court," she began, and slid Blue Jay onto the counsel table like a deck of cards very politely about to be played. "My client is competent. She is managing her affairs. She is the owner of the house in question. The petitioners have moved themselves into her home and attempted to fabricate a care arrangement as a predicate for a conservatorship. We have evidence of forged signatures, false declarations of care hours, and a revocable license, not a lease, signed by all parties." She spoke the word revocable like a piano note. Tasha's attorney tried to interrupt. "At this time, actually," the judge said, and his voice had the weight of a man who had heard everything twice and didn't enjoy it the second time, "I'd like to review the evidence." He lifted the logbook page where Tasha wrote 8 hours of companion care on the DMV day. He looked at the DMV proof. He looked at the text where Chloe called my house free room. He looked at the contract and my added line and the notary stamp and their signatures looped eloquently over their own trap. He finally looked at me. "Ms. Hart," he said, "do you understand the petition before the court?" "I do," I said, "and I do not consent." He denied the conservatorship petition with a sound like a sword going back into its sheath. Then, because sometimes justice is tired of being coy, he granted a temporary restraining order against Eli and Tasha and ordered the revocation of the care license effective immediately. "Sheriff's deputies will assist if necessary," he said. "Ms. Stanley," he glanced at Chloe, "I suggest you find another place to stay by sundown." I don't know if I breathed for a full minute after that. In the hallway, Dina smiled without showing teeth. "We'll move quickly," she said. "Let's go home." We didn't need the sheriff that afternoon, but I had their business card in my pocket just in case. When Eli and Tasha walked into the house behind me, I handed them a manila envelope. Inside were copies of the court orders, my termination notice, and a letter from a locksmith scheduled to arrive at 5 p.m. "You can take what you can carry today," I said. "I'll arrange a supervised pickup for anything you leave." "You're evil," Tasha said, and her voice cracked on the V. "You taught me that word means a woman who doesn't give you what you want," I said. Eli looked at the kitchen, at the magnets, at the spot where his father used to sit and doodle on napkins. For a second, something old flickered in his face and then went out. He grabbed a duffel. Chloe cried, real pretty tears that slid down her face without disturbing her makeup. "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked. "You said you had friends," I said. "Call them." They left in 2 trips carrying trash bags of clothes. The locksmith, a man named Richie with a forearm tattoo of a ship, arrived at 5 and whistled while he changed the deadbolts. "Family?" he asked. "Once," I said. The revenge payoff isn't the locks, though that felt like a door closing in the best way. It's the quiet after. It's the bank alerts that stop pinging at midnight. It's the first morning you wake up and no one is standing in your kitchen narrating your pill taking like you might choke on the air. It's the voicemail from the county's fraud unit 2 weeks later. A woman named Elena thanking me for sending the logbook and the ring footage and the copied forms with my forged signature. "They were taking steps," she said, her voice clipped and careful. It's the letter Tasha received from her spa asking her to resign after Dina sent them the